featuring guests that highlight everyday life. You are listening to The Maggie Linton Show on SiriusXM Urban View.
Well, welcome back. Later this hour, we'll head to Vermont with travel man Dan Schlossberg as he talks about the Wilburton Inn in Manchester Village, Vermont. But we begin this hour with a friend. Gregg Hammond is the brother of our friend and colleague Jennifer Hammond of Realities of Real Estate. Gregg is here to talk about his amazing nonprofit, Guitars Not Guns music program. Very active here in the D.C. area and now spreading around the country. Welcome, Gregg.
Hey, thanks for having me.
It's so good to see you here in front, finally in front of the mic, because we've been trying to do this for what, 3 or 4 months?
Yeah, 3 months now,
yeah.
at least.
But I want to begin with you because your journey within itself bespeaks of how important a guitar is to one's life.
So for me, guitar has saved my life, and I like to tell people the story about how that came about. When I was a kid growing up, I got into a lot of trouble. I didn't have a lot of guidance and ended up hanging out in the streets with the wrong people, influences that, just took me in the wrong direction. And I ended up facing a judge, and he was going to send me to prison. And I got lucky that I had someone who cared enough to say, hey, you haven't been in trouble. No kid is a bad kid. And that's what I believe myself, is no kid is a bad kid. And they took the steps to help me do the house arrest thing and stay out of trouble. But I actually didn't believe that I was going to be able to stay out of trouble. I thought that I would end up going to prison because I was going to violate probation or, something like that. And a buddy of mine brought a guitar over to my house and was showing me how to play a couple of things, and I thought, wow, he let me hold the guitar, he let me play it, and when I felt that, I was amazed. I just said, this is what I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to play the guitar. I've loved the sound of the guitar. I've loved just music. And so I thought, if I get myself a guitar, perhaps I could do this instead of getting into trouble. And I told him, I said, the very next paycheck that I have the extra money, I'm going to go out and try to get a guitar. And I said it might be a month because I have to pay my probation and I have to pay the court fees and all that stuff. And he said, okay, so, I'll bring mine whenever I can, but you go ahead and try to get your own. And amazing, the next day I came home from my job. I was a carpenter. And I came home from my job at 4 o'clock, went out to the mailbox to check the mail, and that was at the front porch. Right there on the step was this cardboard box. And it was a strange-looking cardboard box because it was triangle-shaped. And I thought, what in the world is this? I've never even seen a box like this. I opened it up, and there was a beautiful electric guitar. And I was just amazed. I couldn't believe it. It was like a miracle had happened. But
a divine intervention.
Yeah. Oh, and I wondered, did my friend bring this by, or how did this happen? And I looked, and there was a note, and the note was from my sister Jennifer, and it said, "I've had this for over a year, and haven't been able to figure out how to play it, and I just had this feeling that maybe you might want to try it." And the ironic thing is that I hadn't talked to Jennifer in over at least a year.
We should say that your parents were divorced, and she was living with your mom, and you were living with your dad.
We both actually had moved out of the house early in our teenage years, and this was, she was already in college, starting her college, and I just decided to go out and join the workforce and swing a hammer because that was a lot of fun. Being a carpenter is fun, building things. But we had no communication back then. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have email. There's no way to get a hold of anybody unless you took one of those phones and did the rotary dial. And if somebody had the answering machine, you could leave a message. But she hadn't been able to get a hold of me. So this was just out of nowhere. It's just the sibling connection was so strong that she just felt compelled to bring that guitar, and it changed my life at that point because I started to feel the inspiration that I could write songs, and I could potentially be in bands, and I could be a musician, and that lifted me up, and still got into trouble, but not as much. And over time, more and more I became focused on the music and doing the music.
and it once divine intervention. I've got this thing that I want people to do right now is pray for peace, love, and understanding. At least through Labor Day, and of course they can do it every day if they want.
Yes,
but that is so much of prayer. You sent it out, but you didn't know that your prayer was going to be answered so quickly.
Right.
And that's the reason why you have to at least give it a chance, right?
Give it a chance and believe and understand that it does work. And sometimes it works super fast, and sometimes it works at a slower pace, but it's always the right time.
Exactly.
And that's one of those life lessons, is being patient, to know that your prayers will be answered. You just need to be patient with the process there.
Exactly. Well, so let's talk about how you came about to Guitar for Guns, because you had another situation close to where you live right now, Southwest, with Southwest D.C., where you and your dad faced a situation.
Yeah,
we saw that gun.
Yeah, so I had two situations. One of them was in 2004 at Southwest Waterfront. We got off the metro, and we were walking along the sidewalk near Arena Stage kind of area, and like 25 kids,
Street,
a group of 25 kids crossed the street, and they couldn't have been but between the ages of maybe 8 and maybe 16, and they just attacked. And I remember feeling the like alert inside, like a sixth sense. I could feel that there was trouble coming as they approached, but that was when the Knockout King game was really big out of St. Louis, and the D.C. street kids had started to do the same thing, where they just randomly attack somebody and try to knock them out, and that was a big wake-up call for me. My face was split open, and I was wondering, like, why, I was a kid that got into a lot of trouble, but I didn't get into that kind of violent trouble, and so I was questioning my mind, why would they do that? And I realized they need mentors. They need someone, or they need teams of people to get out there.
Show them a different way.
And show them a different way, and let them know that they're cared for, and that there are people who want to guide them. And I realized, we have no rites of passage in our society where adults help the teens and preteens understand what it means to be an adult, why life is important. That used to be in a lot of different cultures many years ago. The grandparents passed over the parent and became those guides to give kids their rites of passage. And I realized these kids are out in the street. They don't have a rites of passage. They don't know any more than what the other kid is trying to pass along to them and guide them. And so, this is my calling. I felt I need to go make a difference, but I didn't really know how. And then later on, 2005, some kids jumped out of a car at like 11 o'clock at night. I was walking along on the sidewalk in my neighborhood over by U Street, so another whole different neighborhood. And these kids jumped out and pulled a gun and held a gun at my chest and attempted to rob me. And that was the real big shift. And so I started looking for a program, and I found the Guitars Not Guns program. It's a national 501c3 children's music charity that provides guitars to foster kids and at-risk kids at no cost to them, all volunteer staffed, and takes donations to be able to purchase the guitars and do the background checks and pay for insurance. And I said, that's exactly the program I want to get involved in. And so I looked for a classroom to start teaching. And it turned, in D.C., because the closest one was all the way in Virginia, and that would have been a 2-hour commute, after school and that kind of traffic. And I thought,
you want to make a difference, but not that much difference.
Well, I don't want to waste that much time.
Yeah.
If I am going to spend 4 or 5 hours, wouldn't I, do it here in D.C. When there's a giant need, right, where I felt like, I wanted to affect the children that were attacking me and holding me at gunpoint. That's where I felt like I needed to be doing my work. And so there was no Washington, D.C. chapter, so I embarked on getting it started. And that was 2008 when I started on that. And here we are, 2014, and we've expanded. We've got a lot of classrooms around D.C. We started to partner with some really good facilities around D.C., Virginia, Maryland, that work with the youth after school. We're an after-school program.
But like you said, it is really all over the country. Once again, we're talking with Gregg Hammond, and he's talking about the nonprofit that he's taking care of, Guitars Not Guns. It is a music program for at-risk youth, and it is making such a big difference. Let's talk about some of those positive moves that are going on just in this area or even around the country, and how you hooked up with the folks from around the country and the positive moves that are being done there.
So the whole program originated out of California, and they expanded through the state of California, but they found that many other people were interested in starting similar programs and opening up their chapters, and so we've expanded to 18 different states, and we're in Canada. We actually had a classroom and a chapter that started in England, and we're looking to expand and become international. But it's amazing to see how many people are willing to put the time in there, because we're all volunteer. We don't have any paid staff, and there's good and bad with that I've discovered. Some is that people get really busy, and the first thing that they have to stop doing is sometimes it's the volunteering. But we have a guitar anthem that our whole national program, we teach the kids after they've passed their first level. I'll tell you about the class, about how this works, right? Is that we get our students for 8 weeks, sometimes 10 weeks, but it's an 8-week course that the students have to take part in. They
really be acclimated.
Yeah. They have to show up for an hour each week, dedicate themselves to being on time and participating in class. They get to borrow a guitar after they let us see that they are dedicated to showing up a few times, and they get to take the guitar home and borrow it. We teach them to play 6 guitar chords and name all the parts of the guitar, which, it's about 18 different things that they have to remember the names and how they work. And if they can pass a test at the end of that 8 weeks, they get to keep that guitar. That they've earned it. And so what I experience and what all of these other volunteers experience in these classrooms is that a student who may be closed and not have self-esteem opens up. It's like watching a flower open its bloom. It's amazing stuff. And so we're working on getting all of these students together to perform our guitar anthem on stages all around the United States.
Folks, if anybody has any questions or comments, you're certainly welcome to join us. It's 866-801-8255. Once again, that's 866-801-8255. You were talking, when we've talked a number of times, but tell a few stories about, you mentioned the one thing that is so important, self-esteem, and how so many of these kids come in damaged from so many different things that have gone on in their lives and have really bloomed into great, responsible children and citizens of D.C., which makes them citizens of the world.
Right. And, one of the things that some of the public might not know is that when kids come from, adverse circumstances where they either don't have their family doesn't have income, or there's, some kind of abuse or trauma or drug activity in the neighborhoods, they get these kids can be told no over and over and over, and that's a form of mental abuse, whether it's intended like that or not. And so self-esteem just drops, and kids, coming from these circumstances feel like they don't have much opportunity to do anything creative or anything that might be looked upon as good. And so when they come into the classroom and they get into that environment where they're being told, yes, you're accomplishing what we're setting out to do, you're doing a good job, and we don't use no in the classroom because it's always yes. They're always making improvement. Doing that builds that self-esteem for these kids, and you start to see smiles more and more. And it doesn't take but a few classes of seeing that before it becomes inspiring to a volunteer, like such as myself. And that I get so inspired by seeing these amazing things. I had one classroom I came into, and we had new students. And my assistant teacher at that location said, I am going to retrieve the other students. I'm going to let you stay here with these new students. Do you feel okay with them, because they're new, and this location had a lot of kids that have behavior problems. And I said, I don't feel unsafe at all. They're just kids, and I'm about to hand them guitars, so I know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I handed them, and it was one of those days, actually, that I'd worked so many hours volunteering that I was feeling on the edge of collapsing, and I was praying. All my other volunteers had called in and emailed and said that they couldn't make it. And so here I was going to my classroom, knowing I had 25 kids there, and that I was going to be by myself trying to teach 25 kids who really needed 10 teachers.
Yeah.
And I handed the guitars to these kids, and the one young man he looked at me and said, "What do I do?" And I said, just strum. And he started strumming, and he just broke into song. And what he started singing this song just impromptu. My friend, I hope to find you someday, my friend. My friend, I hope to find you. The day that I find you, my friend, will be the day that I finally have a friend. And I choked back tears. And it was just me there in the classroom, and I said, all right, I understand. I understood that my prayer was being answered. I was given, because I asked for a sign. I felt like I couldn't continue volunteering and working that hard if I didn't have some kind of sign. And there it was. It was immediate, pretty much immediate. Yeah. Within a couple of hours, I had that experience, and so I didn't stop. And I've seen many more things like that. I've seen kids who don't talk to their therapists, who won't talk to the teachers. I've seen those kids open up and start talking in our classrooms. We had a young man who was physically challenged. He had, some problems with his leg and with his hand. He couldn't move his fingers the way that we move our fingers. They were restricted in movement. And so we ended up taking a guitar, restringing it backwards, changing it so that he could use the strap and set it in his lap, and then we tuned the guitar to the chord D so that he could just strum all the strings open without having to put a lot of fingers on there. And then I got a piece of PVC from the hardware store and put that onto his finger so that he could play chords and slide along and play along with all the other students. And he got up and performed at the school, like the talent show at the end of the year. And the self-esteem went out the roof, didn't it? And he actually went out to the USDA and applied for a job. And during the interview, they asked him, do you have any hobbies? And he said, oh yeah, I play guitar, and I'm going to write my own songs, and I'm going to start my own band. And they were so inspired by his enthusiasm and self-esteem that they hired him. They hired him right there. And his teachers were so proud of him, and he was so proud of himself. And I was proud, that he felt that inspired by his guitar. I knew that he enjoyed it, but sometimes you don't. When you're as busy as you get doing this kind of stuff, you don't always get to hear from every student. You don't get to get that information. Yeah. But
we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more inspiring stories and a lot more about Gregg Hammond and Guitars, Not Guns. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Imagine if we all had guitars that we could strum. We'd all be making music in
funny,
streets and having
wise,
fun.
Outgoing.
Imagine
Maggie Linton shares more coming up next on Urban View.
Love and peace. Free to climb this ladder to my dreams. Imagine if we all had friends instead of foes. I'd open up my heart.
Featuring guests that highlight everyday life. You are listening to the Maggie Linton Show on Sirius XM Urban View.
Well, welcome back. Once again, we're talking with Gregg Hammond as he talks about his nonprofit Guitars Not Guns music program and the work they're doing here in the D.C. metro area and around the country and hopefully around the world pretty soon.
Around the world.
Now, we're actually listening to the anthem for Guns, Guitars Not Guns.
Guitars Not Guns, yeah. That's our very simple 4-chord song with a very strong message. It's very easy to play, and we wrote it that way intentionally so that all musicians could play, but for the participants of our program, the kids that are in our program, for them to be able to learn how to play it and perform it all over on different stages in their, like, either in their their school or out on stages with other musicians. I try to host open mics around the DC area where our students can get out there and perform. We try to do it in like restaurants where there's some food available, and kids can come out and enjoy an open mic, instead of like just a pub. Speaking of
Busboys and Poets is where you're going to be doing your annual fundraiser in September, right?
Yeah, this fall fundraiser will be over at the Busboys and Poets on 14th Street. It's Sunday, September 28th from 6 to 8. We're going to have some local music. It's a surprise who we're bringing in there. It's a pretty well-known band. And we're going to have some performance from the student participants are going to get out there. We'll have the regular table service so everybody can get food, and we've got some inspirational stuff coming from the kids that have been out there and the teachers too. And we'll have a little social afterwards for everyone to hang out and just chat and with everybody that's involved on all different levels, so you can talk to students, you can talk to teachers, you can talk to admin and parents and everybody.
Speaking of teaching, that's what you actually do for a living when you're not working with, but of course that's all kinds of blends, guitar, for not guns.
Yeah, so my job is
my real job.
My real job is a guitar teacher. The Guitars Not Guns is just volunteer position there, just volunteer time. But I own DC Guitar Lessons right here in Washington, D.C. I can proudly say I am the #1 rated guitar teacher in the Washington, D.C. area, and I've been teaching for almost 10 years here, and so it's my passion, and I always like to throw it out there for people who are like questioning in their life, like what kind of choices they should be making, because I was a carpenter who ended up in construction management. Construction management was not my thing at all. It got to be frustrating, and so coming home from work and not having time to play my guitar was that thing that time in my life where I said, am I going to continue to do a job that I don't want to do, or am I going to do what I love to do? And the how was too much for me to think of. But the why, because I love playing guitar and it inspires me, and it was a thing that saved me from, getting into trouble. I decided I'm going to do that. That's what I'm going to do, and I am going to become a performing musician, but in the time between there, I'm going to start to teach. And then I was pleasantly surprised by finding out that not only do I love playing guitar, but I love teaching guitar. And I'm really good at helping people who have tried before or have always wanted to do it. I'm really good at helping them get started, do the right thing, practice the best way to practice. And so when I get into the classrooms for Guitars Not Guns, we already had like our level 1 book, our level 2 book, and I realized we can improve that, and there was room for improvement. And so now I'm teaching teachers how to teach. And
yeah.
one of the fantastic opportunities that we have here in DC is that I got connected with Parks and Recs, and they have all these locations, and they have access to a lot of volunteers who may or may not play guitar. But one of the questions they asked is, if we send out, an email to everybody saying, would you like to learn how to be a teacher for this program, could you train them? And I said, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Get a large enough space so we can all sit down and have our guitars, and I will teach everybody how to teach our program, our level 1 and level 2 program. And so my entire life is doing what I love, pretty much. And
That's not too bad of a deal.
That's not too bad of a deal, and it's out of making the choice. What the thought that came to my mind was, they say do what you love, and the money will come. And I thought, all right, I'm going to try this, and if it doesn't work, at least I tried it, and I can go back to a job that I don't like. And I never went back to that job.
Yeah, so he's making a difference. Once again, if you want to know about the program, maybe how to help set it up anywhere in the country, the number is 866-801-8255. Got one of the guys who's on the board of directors of Guitars Not Guns all over the whole country, and it is a music program that is set up for at-risk youth, people who have had trouble but need to find themselves, building self-esteem. It's a little bit of everything, and plus it introduces them to the most wonderful thing in the world, and that's music.
Yes.
It really is. All right. Talk about the libraries, because they're so important, too, at least here in the D.C. area.
Right.
And, we know that a lot of libraries are struggling around the country, but this is a way for libraries to also garner support in a different sort of way.
It's very different, and it's unique, and I found it to be amazing, because I didn't know that they actually had, the D.C. libraries actually, they've all been getting these renovations, and they actually have these wonderful spaces, these rooms where a guitar class could take place. And I started with the first one is in Anacostia at the Bellevue Library down there. And when I toured and saw what kind of resources they had and how much space and how much dedication they have to they want to bring the kids in to get them, of course, in the library and using all of those resources, but being in a safe place. And that's exactly what the Guitars Not Guns program, is out to do. We want to get kids off the street and be in a place that's not necessarily their school, because there are already things happening at school. So they're safer there than they are in the street. So DC Public Library having all of these rooms and all these resources, the staff to help us manage and keep track of the students coming in, lending help for taking attendance. That's when we ask for volunteers. In order for us to start a classroom, we need basically 4 people. We need a teacher who can teach the class. We need an assistant teacher, and we need someone to take attendance, and then we need someone to manage that attendance and inventory back to our locations manager. And so one of the really cool things about getting this class started at the Bellevue Library was that they pointed out, hey, in addition to the class taking place, we have a couple of tables, and we're going to put out tons of information so that the participants of the guitar class who are members of the library with their library card have things to check out. And I was like, I said, yes, absolutely. That's such a bonus to the program. The kids, already getting music, but they can check out music to listen to. They can get inspired from musicians, from the past and from current, musicians, and books on music, and they can realize that what a resource they have in the library. Mm-hmm. Kids who might not have,
ever step foot inside of a library,
find out there's a guitar class in the library, and they can do the work, earn the guitar, and get to keep it. That's an inspiration. Gets them in the door of the library, and then they realize, wow, what an amazing resource, right here in the library.
Yeah. Learning a lot. Once again, it's 866-801-8255. Once again, 866-801-8255. Let's talk about your program, your goal of really having the guitar success all over the world.
So this is a
bunch of folks playing.
Oh, it's a big vision of mine. I've been working on this for a while. I wanted to set the world's record for the most people playing the same song at the same time in the same place. And I was inspired by a Paul McCartney concert where everybody was singing at the same time, the entire 100,000 people. And I thought that's the kind of thing I want to inspire around the globe. And so I was trying to decide what song we might do. And it turned out that when I sat down with my friend Vince and we worked out this song for the Guitars Not Guns program, I said, well, actually, that would be a perfect song to do that. And what an amazing opportunity to take kids who have come from challenged, situations to take the guitar that they have earned and get them on a stage in front of a lot of people who are watching and have them perform and have the applause, which is an amazing thing. And it's an amazing thing to get on a stage, perform some music, realize that you've put out this great energy, and then receive it back when people are applauding. Mm-hmm. And so that's the goal with getting all of these kids on these stages. But I wanna try to tie it in with webcams and link all at the same time around the entire globe. The entire globe, all at the same time, playing the song and supporting the kids who are participating in our program, and making it a global, once per
event.
year,
yeah,
and have well-known artists who are, there are tons of artists that want to make a difference out there, and I feel that music is this thing that we all connect to. Music is in our life from the time that we're before we're even born. We hear the sounds of music and rhythm all around us, and everybody can think of songs that when they hear them, they're taken back in a memory, just real quick, to times, all different times.
Mm-hmm. Very true.
And it's that's how we come together as people. We sing songs of joy, sing songs of mourning. At different times we sing songs to celebrate and dance to. And I know firsthand that if you just you bring out a musical instrument and start to play a little bit of music at a gathering, people are going to come around and attempt to get in there and sing a little bit if you let them, and that's just people. It's inside of us in a spiritual sense.
Yeah, very true. And the song again is called "Set Me Free." Words and music by Gregg Hammond and Vince
Schuerman.
I wanted to not screw his name up. Schuerman, sure, it's the right one. And I have to say that because I know that it's done such great works, and that there is more to come. Even if they don't keep up the guitar for the rest of their lives, just introducing them to, for all we know, this could be one of the few things that they actually can own and prize, and it can change a life so quickly.
It's a you said it right there with kids who don't have anything. They may be in a homeless shelter, or they may have just not have anything, and this is the thing that they've earned and they get to keep. And they make music, they create stuff, and they don't have the challenge of being in a group where they're not doing as well as somebody else, or like sports tend to be very competitive and aggressive, and some kids just don't want to even participate in that. But the music and having their own instrument, a guitar specifically, because it's portable. It's not like carrying a piano. It's not like trying to carry like a horn around,
or a bass.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or a big drum or something like that. Guitar is very mobile, and so that makes a difference too. But the kids having something that is their own, that they've earned, that self-esteem is amazing.
It is. Once again, many thanks to Gregg Hammond of the nonprofit Guitars Not Guns music program. More on their amazing work at guitarsnotguns.org. Once again, guitarsnotguns.org. Greg's guitar lessons at dcguitarlessons.com.
Yes.
Because we got to get that in. He's available anytime. For those of you who need tune-ups or tune-ins, it is dcguitarlessons.com. And more on their September 28th fundraiser at Busboys and Poets right here in D.C. on 14th Street, on Facebook at GNGDC.
And that's our website, too. gngdc.org is for local for our website.
All right. Thanks, Greg. Good seeing you again.
You too. Thank you.
It's been a while. Coming up, Vermont Beauty at the end. Stay tuned.
Set me free to be who I want to be, and set me free.
We'll be right back with more conversation about today's hottest topics right after this short break. This is the Maggie Linton Show on Sirius XM Urban View.